Our Torah portion is about transition of power. It's about leadership, and it shows examples of what kind of leadership we ought to have and what kind of leadership is unacceptable. It begins with the story. It begins the story of the Exodus from Egypt, and the first thing that is said is that a new king arose upon Egypt. There is a transition of power. And the first thing that that new king does is to create division between the people. This is the king that is called Pharaoh, and that Pharaoh is the one that decides that our ancestors are not part of the people that live in the land of Egypt. He separates them by saying to everyone else, these are the people of the children of Israel, and we should be afraid of them. They are actually not one of us. They are our enemies, and when war will arise, they will join the enemy and they will destroy us. They are a threat to our well-being. This king is not a leader that cares about the good and welfare of everyone in the land that he rules. He only cares about ruling and about himself. So he enslaves them to build pyramids to glorify his name. But that's not enough. So he incites his people with false facts, with rumors, and with hate to go about and to kill every newborn baby boy by throwing them into the Nile. So the first step is creating hate and division, and then the next step is to create a genocide to all the people of Israel. This is a king that doesn't care about the people, but cares only about himself. And then we have another story, another example of leadership. And this time, it's actually about two people. Moses, the greatest leader we ever had, and the daughter of Pharaoh, of all people. And both of them have different traits than Pharaoh. The first thing that we read about the daughter of Pharaoh is that she comes out of the palace, and she goes and she sees what is happening in the land. And she sees a baby floating on the Nile, and she says that's a Hebrew baby. But instead of feeling hate and otherness, like her dad is spreading through lies and deception and incitement, she feels compassion, and she takes him, and she raises him. And then, when that boy grows, when he is already a young lad, the first thing that he does is to go out and to see what's around him. And again, the same reaction. He sees people suffering and he feels compassion. So as the greatest story in the Bible, the story of the Exodus of Egypt, begins, it actually begins by telling us about transition of power and two kinds of leadership. One that uses hatred, division, lies, and violence in order to rule, and the other that actually cares about the good and welfare of other people and actually feels compassion to the ones that are suffering. And they don't care if someone is from a different family or a different race or a different origin, because the daughter of Pharaoh knows that Moses is a Hebrew child. She says so, but still she raises him and she feels compassion. This story inspired not only the people of Israel, it's not only our greater story, it also inspired so many other nations. In fact, everyone that was looking for a story about liberation, about freedom to all, about caring about everyone, look at that story. Our founding fathers that came to this country and rebelled against the British oppression they describe themselves as the Hebrews, as the Israelites, and they saw the Brits as the Pharaoh and his army. And then the black slaves in this country, they sang the words of Moses, "Let my people go." And they saw themselves as the Hebrews, as the Israelites, and they saw their white masters as Pharaoh. And this story still inspires us. We tell it to our children every Passover, actually every Shabbat. When we bless the wine, we remember the story of the Exodus from Egypt. And we remember a message that is still unfortunately so relevant to our lives, that leaders can be horrible. Leaders can actually cause hate and division and incitement and even violence. And we should be careful, especially from leaders that use the words us and them and speak about segments of the people that they should worry about their good and welfare, speak about them as those people and them, and explain why they are different than us. We should aim to have the leaders we ought to be, ones like the daughter of Pharaoh and Moses that express compassion to every human being. Shabbat Shalom. We turn now to page 376 to sing together, God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam.